I woke up hoping today would feel different. I didn't expect fireworks or some magical shift in my bones, but still turning 40 felt like it should mean something. A threshold. A moment. Maybe just a sign that someone remembered. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. My name's Jonah. I'm 40 years old and I live in a quiet little cul-de-sac in Asheville, North Carolina. I've got a decent job, a house with a porch, and a wife named Dana, or at least, I used to think I did. I reached over to the other side of the bed. Cold sheets. I looked around the room, no signs of life. No coffee brewing. No familiar humming from the kitchen. No card on the nightstand. Nothing. I checked my phone. A couple of LinkedIn happy birthdays and a generic message from my dentist reminding me I was overdue for a cleaning. Nothing from Dana. I sat up and blinked hard, trying to make sense of it. Maybe she was out getting something, a cake? Balloons? Something cheesy but thoughtful? The hope was still there, just barely hanging on. I made my way through the house, expecting to find a note or maybe something set up in the living room. But all I found were dishes in the sink from last night and her jacket missing from the hook. No breakfast smells. No decorations. Not even a sticky note. I checked the fridge, thinking maybe there was a surprise cake or something tucked away. Just leftover takeout and a bottle of wine with 2 sips left. My stomach turned a little. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she had a big dinner planned later tonight. She hated mornings anyway, always said celebrations belonged to evenings and candlelight. But this didn't feel like that. This felt like something else. I walked back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed, not Dana. Just Isaac, my best friend. A simple, happy 40th, man. Let's grab lunch this week. You around? At least someone remembered. I stared at Dana's side of the closet, her shoes lined up neatly. A couple were gone. She hadn't even said she had plans for today. We hadn't fought. There were no warning signs. But now that I thought about it, she'd been distant lately. Cold in ways that didn't look like anger, just absence. I pressed her name on my phone and hovered over the call button. Then stopped. Something told me if I had to call my wife on my birthday to ask if she remembered, I already knew the answer. It wasn't about the presents or the fanfare. I just wanted to be seen. A simple, happy birthday, Jonah. A kiss on the cheek. A smile that said, I'm glad you're here. But she wasn't here. Not in the way that counted. That's when it hit me. She forgot. And that cold feeling that had crept into the corners of our house over the past year? It had finally settled in for good. By 2 in the afternoon, I couldn't pretend anymore. I spent the whole morning trying to distract myself. Took the dog for a long walk even though it wasn't my day. Made coffee I didn't drink. Cleaned the bathroom sink like it mattered. All while checking my phone every 10 minutes like some sad teenager waiting for a text that would never come. At 2:13 p.m. I gave in and called her. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Her voice came through casual, almost chipper. Hey. That was it? Just hey. Hey, I said, trying to sound neutral. So, I guess you've been busy today. She paused. Not really. Just out with some people. Why? My heart sank a little. I waited, giving her the space to say it. To realize. To remember. Nothing. You do know what today is, right? I finally asked. Another pause, longer this time. Oh, crap. Is it today? She let out a half-laugh like she'd forgotten to pick up milk on the way home. Your birthday, right? Shit, sorry, babe. I totally blanked. I said nothing. There was no fixing it at this point. No half-hearted, I'll make it up to you would land right. She sighed. Don't be mad. I didn't mean to forget. I just had other plans. Other plans? I repeated, each word tasting sour in my mouth. Yeah, she said, and I heard voices in the background, a man's voice, low and smooth, followed by Dana's giggle. That laugh? The one she used to save for me back when things were good. What was that? I asked, not able to keep the edge out of my voice. She didn't miss a beat. Just some people I'm with. Can you not make this a big deal, Jonah? I said I forgot. Don't make it a thing. Who are you with? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. Oh my God, she muttered. Are we really doing this right now? On your birthday? Another laugh in the background. His again. Her again. That low, flirty tone I hadn't heard in months. Not with me, anyway. Is there someone else? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Her tone shifted, not guilty. Not even angry. Just cold. I think you're reading too much into things, she said. But maybe you should take a breath, Jonah. Go enjoy your day. Or whatever. The words hung there like smoke. Then she added, almost with a shrug in her voice, I'll talk to you later. And just like that, she hung up. I stared at my screen until it went black. No more sound. No explanations. Just the soft hum of the quiet house around me, the kind of quiet that screams in your ears when you realize the person you love stopped choosing you a long time ago. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there letting the weight settle. She didn't forget. She chose not to remember. I didn't plan to go anywhere that night. After the call with Dana, I sat on the couch for what felt like hours, just staring at nothing. The sun dipped low outside the living room window, casting orange light across the hardwood floor. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't showered. I just kept replaying her voice in my head, the way she laughed with some other guy like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then my phone buzzed again. Isaac. You home? I didn't answer right away. He texted again before I could type a reply. I'm coming over. No arguments. 10 minutes later, he pulled into the driveway. I opened the door before he could knock. He grinned like he knew I wouldn't turn him away. Happy birthday, old man. Thanks, I mumbled, stepping aside to let him in. Marina was right behind him, holding a grocery bag and a bottle of something bubbly. You're not spending your birthday sulking in the dark. Let's go. Go where? I asked. Our place, Isaac said. Trust me. I almost said no. I didn't want to bring my mess into their home. But something about their energy, warm, steady, made it impossible to refuse. 20 minutes later, I walked into their living room and stopped dead. There were streamers. A ridiculous lordy look who's 40 banner strung across the mantel. A table covered in takeout trays from my favorite taco place. And people, a half-dozen familiar faces from college and work. Friends I hadn't seen in years. Surprise! Marina called out, holding up a tiny cupcake with a single flickering candle. I stood there blinking, trying to take it all in. You serious? I asked Isaac. He shrugged like it was no big deal. You needed a real celebration. And you needed to be reminded who actually gives a damn about you. Someone handed me a drink. Someone else pulled me into a hug. I felt off balance, not from sadness anymore, but from the sudden shift. The warmth. The effort. The sincerity. There was no big speech. No gift-wrapped boxes. Just good food, real laughter, and people who didn't need anything from me except my presence. At one point, Isaac put his hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, and this time I actually meant it. Yeah, I think I am. Late into the night, after the guests had thinned and Marina was clearing plates, I scrolled through the photos someone had taken. There was one of me mid-laugh, arms around Isaac and an old coworker named Denise. I hadn't seen myself smile like that in a long time. I posted it. Just a simple caption. Grateful for the people who show up. You know who you are. Real family. Almost immediately, friends commented. Happy birthdays. Inside jokes. Heart emojis. But there was one comment I kept waiting for, even though I told myself I didn't care. It never came. And maybe that was the real gift. For once, I didn't feel like I was waiting for Dana. For her approval. Her attention. Her crumbs. I looked around Isaac and Marina's house, a little messy, full of noise and clutter and life, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop on the nightstand. I was still at Isaac and Marina's, crashed on their pull-out couch with a blanket that smelled like laundry detergent and kindness. The sun was barely up and the room was quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the vibration of my phone again, and again. I rubbed my eyes and reached for it. 6 missed calls. 4 voicemails. 9 texts, all from Dana. At first, I thought something had happened. An emergency. But as I started reading, the truth slammed into me harder than any ambulance siren ever could. Seriously, Jonah? That post was low. You're making me look like the villain. You think it's okay to drag me like that in public? Take it down. Now. Not a single happy birthday. Not a single I'm sorry. Just fury. Ego. Damage control. The voicemail was worse. Her voice hissed through the speaker with the kind of sharpness I hadn't heard since our last real fight months ago, the one about the Instagram model she kept messaging late at night under the excuse of old friends. You're being petty. You know how people talk. You made me look bad on purpose. That post was a cheap shot. She sounded angry. But underneath that I heard it fear. Not of losing me. Of losing control. I tossed the phone face down on the cushion. In the kitchen, I found Isaac and Marina making pancakes. The smell of cinnamon and melted butter greeted me before they did. Rough morning. Isaac asked, flipping a pancake with one hand, coffee mug in the other. You could say that, I muttered. He pointed to the bar stool. Sit. Eat. Ignore. I did. Dana called again during breakfast. I silenced it without a second thought. Marina slid a plate in front of me and gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. Good things don't start with screaming voicemails, she said, smiling. Halfway through my coffee, Dana texted again. I'm coming over. We need to talk. I read it out loud. Isaac raised an eyebrow. You gonna let her? He asked. I thought about it. The answer came easily this time. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. For what? Marina asked gently. For whatever comes next. And I meant it. I had spent years avoiding conflict. Swallowing hurt. Explaining her moods, excusing her distance. But something shifted the moment she got mad, not for hurting me, but for being exposed. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about power. And I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Let her come. Let her scream. Let her try. Because this time I was done flinching. She showed up just after 10. No warning, no knock, just the sound of her car door slamming and the sharp clip of heels against the concrete walkway. Isaac's dog barked once from the backyard, then went quiet. I watched through the front window as she approached. Dana, dressed like she was heading to a meeting, tailored blazer, oversized sunglasses, too much perfume. Not a hint of apology in her stride. Just pure indignation. Marina glanced at me from the kitchen. You sure you want to do this here? It's fine, I said, standing. She won't be long. I opened the door before she could knock. Well, she said, pushing past me. You've certainly made a mess. She didn't even ask to come in. Just barged through like she still owned the space. Like this was just another argument I'd eventually fold on. Isaac watched her from the hallway, arms crossed, but said nothing. This wasn't his fight. Dana turned to face me in the middle of the living room, hands on her hips. You posted that crap online and made me look like I don't care about you. Do you even realize how many people messaged me about it? I stayed quiet. Real family, she continued, mocking the phrase like it was a joke. You seriously thought that was okay? What do you think that makes me look like? I met her eyes, calm and unshaken. Like someone who forgot their husband's 40th birthday and laughed with another man while doing it. Her mouth twitched. You don't know what you heard. I know exactly what I heard, I said. I also know what I didn't, no apology, no message, not even a text until I made you look bad. She scoffed. Are we really going to do this here? In front of your little fan club? Marina didn't flinch. She just took a slow sip of coffee. I'm not here to argue, Dana said, softening her voice, switching tactics. I just think we should talk like adults. Privately. Before this gets out of hand. It's already out of hand, I said, pulling a folder from the side table. I handed it to her. What's this? She asked, flipping it open. Contact information for my lawyer, I said. And documentation of every shared account, every asset, and every precaution I've already taken. Her expression cracked for just a second, confusion bleeding into panic. You talk to a lawyer? She whispered. Two, actually. Just to be thorough. She snapped the folder shut. Jonah, be serious. I am. You're really going to blow up our whole life over one mistake? You didn't make a mistake, I said, voice steady. You made a choice. Over and over. You stopped showing up for this marriage a long time ago. Her tone hardened again. You can't just walk away from everything. We have shared accounts. The house, I've already moved half our funds to a separate legal account. What's mine is protected. What's shared is being reviewed. You'll get what's fair. You're bluffing. Try me. She stared at me, eyes narrowing. You don't get to just rewrite the story. You don't get to make me the villain. You did that all by yourself, I said. She looked around the room like maybe someone would step in and save her. Like maybe Isaac or Marina would come to her defense. No one said a word. You're seriously ending the marriage? Over a Facebook post and a bad birthday? She asked. No, I said, stepping closer. I'm ending it because I've been invisible for years. Because you care more about your image than about the person standing right in front of you. Because when I finally stood up, you got mad, not hurt. Not sorry. Just mad I told the truth. She swallowed hard. And I'm not scared of you anymore. Silence hung in the room. Heavy. Final. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out the front door. The air felt still after she left. Marina exhaled slowly from the kitchen. Isaac nodded, quiet approval in his eyes. And me? I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Power. It started 2 days later. At first, it was subtle, a few awkward texts from mutual friends, a couple of comments that didn't sit right. Hey man, hope you and Dana are okay. She said you're going through something. Heard you've been off lately? Everything all right? Then came the social media posts. Not directly about me, of course. Dana was too polished for that. She preferred the passive-aggressive route, wrapped in faux empathy and vague language. Sometimes people show you who they are when you stop doing everything for them. Sad but true. Sacrificed years of my life for someone who couldn't even say thank you. I'm done being used. The likes poured in. Sympathy emojis. Friends chiming in with "you deserve better, babe." Her coworkers commenting, sending you love. I wasn't tagged, but everyone knew who she meant. She wanted to paint me as the cold, ungrateful husband who snapped one day and walked out. And for a moment, just a moment, it worked. Even my cousin texted me. "Did you really leave Dana without warning? Man, what happened to you? What happened?" I scrolled through her posts again, hands shaking, until I hit play on the voicemail I had saved from her. The one where she screamed about looking bad and accused me of making her the villain, not because she had forgotten my birthday or laughed with another man, but because I told the truth. I opened my messages, attached the voicemail file, and hit post. Since there's some confusion, here's what actually happened. No caption. No hashtags. Just her voice, angry, dismissive, entitled. Her words, plain as day. "You think it's okay to drag me like that in public? Take it down, Jonah. I'm serious." I went to bed without checking the notifications. By morning, it had exploded. Comments flooded in. Some people defended her, of course, old college friends, acquaintances who only knew her filtered life online. But others? They heard the truth. Damn, that's ice cold. This voicemail is wild, she's not even sorry. You deserve better, man. Real talk. More surprising were the private messages. People I hadn't talked to in years. Former coworkers. Distant friends. Even one of her own cousins. She did the same thing to me during my divorce. All image, no substance. And just like that, the tide started to turn. Dana tried to double down, more vague posts, a few motivational quotes about self-worth and cutting out toxic energy. But the comments weren't the same anymore. People started pushing back. Some unfollowed. A few called her out. She posted less after that. Meanwhile, I went back to living my life slowly, steadily. I met Isaac and Marina for coffee. Got texts from friends who hadn't heard from me in years, just checking in. One even said, "Man, I didn't know how bad it was. That post hit me in the gut." For once, people saw me. Not the guy behind the camera. Not the husband in the background of Dana's curated world. Me. I hadn't set out to fight a public battle. I didn't want drama. But when she tried to smear me, I gave the world one unfiltered moment of truth, and that was all it took. And maybe the best part? I didn't have to say a single bad word about her. I just let her speak for herself. The call came 5 days after I posted the voicemail. By then, the dust had mostly settled. Her social media posts had slowed to a trickle. The support she'd banked on had dried up. A few friends, mutual ones, had messaged to say they were so sorry for picking sides too soon. Dana had gone quiet. Until now. I was folding laundry in Isaac and Marina's guest room, my temporary home for the time being, when my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a moment. I almost didn't answer. But some part of me, not curious, not nostalgic, just ready, tapped accept. "Hello?" I said, voice flat. There was a pause. Then her voice, softer than I'd heard it in months. Almost unfamiliar. "Hey." I didn't say anything. She sighed. I figured I owed you a real conversation. No games. No fighting." Still, I waited. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it," she said finally. "The post. The lawyer. The separation. I thought you were just blowing off steam." I could hear something in her voice, not regret exactly. More like disbelief. Like a child who pushed too far and only now realized the boundary was real. "I was upset," she said. "And maybe I said some things the wrong way." I kept my voice steady. "You didn't say anything wrong, Dana. You said exactly what you meant." Another pause. She tried again. "I just thought we'd move past it. Like we always do." And there it was, the assumption that no matter what happened, I'd stay. That I'd fold. That I'd take the hit and carry the blame and smooth things over. "I know I haven't been easy," she said, voice barely above a whisper now. "But I didn't expect to lose you over something like this." I finally spoke. "You didn't lose me over one thing. You lost me over years of not seeing me. Of treating me like a placeholder. Of making me feel alone. Even when we were in the same room." She didn't argue. That, more than anything, told me this wasn't a real apology. "I don't know what you want me to say," she admitted. I thought about that for a second. "Nothing," I said. "There's nothing left to say." "But Jonah," she started. And I could hear the panic start to leak through again. "I'm not angry anymore," I said quietly. "I'm not hurt. I'm not waiting for an apology. I'm done." She was silent. And in that silence, I think she finally understood. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a tantrum. This was the end. I let that silence sit for a few seconds longer. Then, without another word, I hit end call. I set the phone down, folded the last t-shirt, and stood by the window for a while. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. It felt like any other moment, but it wasn't. Because now I was free. Not with anger, not with bitterness, just peace. The morning after Dana's call, I didn't feel wrecked or hollow. I felt weightless. It was the first time in a long time I woke up without that tightness in my chest. No dread about what she'd say, or what I had to fix, or how I'd have to shrink myself to keep the peace. Just sunlight creeping through the blinds and the smell of coffee already brewing in the kitchen. Marina had a habit of getting up early and putting on soft jazz while she cooked. This morning was no different. I padded into the kitchen barefoot, and she greeted me with a plate of scrambled eggs and toast like I was part of the house. No tiptoeing, no weird energy, no questions. "Plans today?" she asked, passing me a mug. "Actually, yeah," I said. "I think I want to get outside. Just clear my head." She smiled. "Good. You should." An hour later, I was on a trail I hadn't walked in years. A winding coastal path about 40 minutes outside Asheville. One Dana had always said was too muddy, too rustic. I used to love it, and somehow I had just stopped going. I parked near the trailhead and took my time walking the first mile. The air was cool and smelled like pine and wet soil. Every few steps, I stopped to take pictures. Little things I used to overlook. The curve of moss on a fallen log, a hawk circling in the distance, the way the wind made the tall grass ripple like waves. I hadn't felt this quiet in my own head in a long time. At a scenic overlook, I pulled out a small sketch pad I used to keep in the glove box. The pages were dusty, but the pencil still worked. I started sketching. Nothing fancy, just lines and shapes, trying to recapture the habit I'd abandoned. It felt clumsy and freeing at the same time. I didn't think about Dana once. I thought about all the things I used to do before I started making myself small to keep a woman like her happy. The things I let fall away. The pieces of me I slowly handed over until there was nothing left but a man she could mold and ignore. Not anymore. Later that evening, I met Isaac and Marina at a little wine bar near downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was cozy. Exposed brick, soft music, warm lighting. We sat outside under string lights, sipping cheap Merlot and picking at a charcuterie board that Isaac swore he didn't know how to order. Marina laughed so hard she nearly dropped a grape. Isaac told some ridiculous story about his old college roommate getting arrested for stealing a canoe. And I sat back, grinning like a fool, realizing something simple but huge. This was family. Not the kind you marry into. Not the kind bound by blood. The kind that shows up no matter what. The kind that makes room for you even when you don't know how to ask. And for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving my life. I was living it. The last few days of that week passed like a slow exhale. No more calls from Dana. No more surprise visits. No cryptic texts, no guilt trips, no angry rants online. Just silence. And it was beautiful. It wasn't the kind of silence that follows a fight, heavy and waiting to explode again. This was different. This was the quiet that settles in after a storm. When the clouds are finally gone and the air smells clean again. The rumors stop too. At first, I'd gotten some weird looks walking around town. People who knew both of us trying to piece together the story. A few coworkers had pulled me aside to ask how I was holding up, their eyes full of awkward concern. I answered the same way every time. I'm doing better than I have in a long time. Eventually, even those conversations faded. People stopped asking. The gossip dried up. And Dana? She didn't post again. No new inspirational quotes. No sad selfies. Nothing. Her silence said more than any status update ever could. One afternoon, I walked into a bookstore downtown, the kind with creaky floors and shelves packed too tight. I bought a leather-bound journal on a whim. I hadn't written anything for myself in years. That night, I cracked it open and just started. No big thoughts. No deep revelations. Just a list. Things I want to do next. Travel. Maybe the Pacific Northwest. Start sketching again. Regularly. Look into opening my own consulting firm. Adopt a dog. Get a new couch that doesn't remind me of her. Call Aunt Rita. I miss her. Say yes to more invites even when I want to hide. Let myself be happy even when it feels unfamiliar. I didn't realize how long I'd been writing until my hand cramped. But looking at the list, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. Not the kind you force when everything's crumbling. Not the desperate kind that clings to crumbs of affection. This was the slow, steady kind. The kind that comes when you finally start choosing yourself. On Sunday, I walked downtown just because I could. No plans, no schedule. Just me and a cup of coffee letting the sun hit my face. I ran into Marina and Isaac on the sidewalk. They were on their way to a flea market and they pulled me along without asking. We spent the morning digging through crates of old records and stacks of vintage postcards. Isaac bought a busted lamp he swore he'd fix eventually. Marina found a ridiculous framed cross-stitch that read, "Don't let the bastards get you down." She handed it to me with a grin. Thought it'd look great in your new place. I laughed. Perfect. And it was. Because that was the thing about starting over, you didn't need fireworks or some big, dramatic closure. Sometimes peace just slips in quietly. And when it does, you finally understand the one thing you couldn't see while you were in the middle of it. Letting go wasn't losing. It was finally coming home to yourself.